The dangerous reach of ISIS extends all around the world, including into this country, using the power of social media.
Federal authorities are questioning a man in Norfolk, Virginia tonight to see if he played any role in raising money for the plan to travel to Syria. U.S. officials say the Brooklyn men were lured by ISIS propaganda and that two of them bought plane tickets to get to Syria. Intelligence agencies say as many as 20,000 people from 90 countries have traveled to Syria to fight, many to join ISIS. They say 180 Americans have either gone or tried to. 20 from the U.S. have been stopped in the past year and a half, ranging in age from 15 to 63. ISIS now has social media feeds in 23 languages, and the Director of National Intelligence said today it's virtually impossible to stop.
The State Department says they're combating around 90,000 tweets a day.
In Minnesota today, a teenager stopped last May at the airport admitted in court he was trying to get to Syria.
24-year-old Abdurazul Shuraboyev and his 19-year-old friend planned to fly from New York to Turkey and then cross into Syria to join ISIS. The men had a chilling secondary plan if they were unable to reach Syria: to shoot Obama and then get shot ourselves. If ISIS ordered him to, he would also plant a bomb on Coney Island.
Sounds like Vegas.
What's going on, y'all? You're listening to Occupy the Media, and I'm your host, Paco Elijah. Today is Sunday, March the 1st. Catch me every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific at lacrlc.org. That's lacrlc.org. So this week, we have ISIS still taking up the headlines. Apparently, we have ISIS recruiting more and more Americans and actually convincing them to take up the fight and fly to Syria. So we're going to talk about that. Also, this week we have the DHS spending bill debate. Who should be blamed and why? Is the ISIS threat being overblown in order to pressure Congress members to vote along with the spending bill? You know, the spending bill that the Senate Democrats want, that has DHS funding along with the president's executive order on immigration. So we definitely want to get into that. Also, I want to try and get into the fall. I like to call it the fall of Bill O'Reilly. Hopefully he'll see the same fate as Brian Williams. We got to keep exposing really all of these hosts so they can all see the same fate, and more and more people will wake up to the media's propaganda. But real quickly, our first major story for the week: 3 men from Brooklyn would be ISIS. Apparently, they wanted to actually fly to Syria and take up the fight with ISIS. Now, a complaint and affidavit in support of arrest warrant was filed on February 24th, 2015 by FBI agent Ryan Zinger. 3 men were arrested. We have Abdurazul Shuraboyev, 24 years old, Akhor, 19 years old, and Abror Habibov, 30 years old. And I know I'm probably not saying the names right, but I know the question that I have is, are they a legitimate, real threat because they wanted to fly to Syria and try to really, truly fight with ISIS? And does the FBI really have a legitimate case against them?
The teen's attorney says the FBI is rushing to prosecute.
This is all information that is delivered to the FBI from a confidential informant that the government says in their own complaint they can't rely on the credibility of.
And if you take a look at the complaint, you'll see what he's talking about here on page 10. I actually read the complaint. It's about 20 pages or so. Now on page 10 here, paragraph 18, in or about late September 2014, a confidential informant that they call or label the CI approached Shuraboyev at a mosque while posing as an ideologically sympathetic individual, and met Saeed Akhmetov later the same day. Now at the bottom here, it states the CI is a paid informant. For the purpose of this affidavit, the government is not relying on any independent information provided by the CI and is not making any representation as to the credibility of the CI. So they are not relying on the credibility of the confidential informant. Rather, the government is relying on the recorded conversations themselves for the purpose of establishing probable cause to arrest the defendants. Okay. Now there's an interesting article here that I found in the New Yorker that kind of breaks down this affidavit. And let's see here. let's see, did the FBI encourage would-be ISIS recruits in Brooklyn? Okay, because FBI is definitely known for encouraging terrorists. If you haven't checked any of their prior cases. Now it states here, Juroboev is an Uzbek or Uzbek who moved to the United States. The complaint doesn't say when. The complaint says that he posted this message on the website. Greetings. We too wanted to pledge our alliance and commit ourselves while not present there. I am in USA now, but we don't have any arms. But is it possible to commit ourselves as dedicated martyrs anyway while here? What I'm saying is to shoot Obama and then get shot ourselves. Will it do? That will strike fear in the hearts of infidels. So apparently he posted this to some jihadi website to, I guess, try to get in contact with ISIS. But it says here, now, you would think that someone who's trying to carry out something like that knows that the government is looking for quotes like that, paraphrases like that, threats like that online, and then they would stop you from accomplishing your goal. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense that someone would post that. Okay, it states here, 7 days later, on August 15th, federal agents went to Juroboev's apartment and spoke with him. According to Ryan Zinger, an FBI special agent who swore the complaint, Juroboev cooperated freely, allowing the agents to inspect his iPhone and see that hilaf@news.com was a frequently visited website. He acknowledged that he wrote and posted the message on August 8th, and further stated that he would like to travel to Syria to engage in violence on behalf of ISIL, if Allah will, but currently lack the means to travel there. Okay, so he's just going to freely give up this information and give them exactly what they want to hear pretty much. Juroboev went on to say that he would harm President Obama if he had the opportunity to do so, but currently does not have the means or an imminent plan to do so. Now, considering it's the FBI, you would think that they would have snatched him up right there and took him in. But they didn't. They left. 4 days later, the federal agents returned. This time, Juroboev was even more helpful. After repeating that he would kill President Obama if anybody from ISIS ordered him to, he said that he would also plant a car bomb in Coney Island if he were so ordered by ISIL. In addition, he provided the agents with a written statement that said, in part, if I get a command from the Islamic Caliphate, that is according to Quran, and I have the means to carry out the given command, and if I can make my intention only for Allah, I will carry out, even if that person is Obama. Juroboev didn't stop there. He vouchsafed to the agents that he had a friend and roommate, Akhor, who shared both his views on ISIS and his wish to wage jihad by fighting in Syria or by engaging in violence in the United States. So he's just gradually telling on himself, giving himself up pretty much, giving up his roommate. Something seems really odd about that. It's not every day that FBI agents get a written note from someone saying that he's waiting for an order to kill the president or plant a car bomb, and that he has a pal who is of like mind. Exactly. It states here, the agents could have arrested Juroboev on the spot, put him under oath, and sought to discover whether he was a real threat or simply a braggart. Instead, they went away again, which evidently surprised Juroboev. Of course. Because we know that they're known for snatching up people for things they put on Facebook. Things that you type up on Facebook, they can show up to your home. This guy is giving direct threats, telling you he knows someone else just like him and wants to do the same thing, and they leave him alone. Now, further on it says, in this case, the would-be ISIS recruits were assisted and encouraged in their plans by a paid FBI informant. Now, according to the complaint, this individual, who isn't named, approached Juroboev at a mosque last September while posing as an ideologically sympathetic individual. Shortly after that, he approached Saeed Akhmetov and became friendly with him too. Over the subsequent few months, the narrative contained in the complaint makes clear the informant spoke frequently with Juroboev and Saeed Akhmetov, watched ISIS videos with them. He discussed their plans to join ISIS in Syria and even to agree to go there with them. This is the FBI informant watching ISIS videos with them and agreeing to go to Syria with them. Many of his conversations with Juroboev and Saeed were secretly recorded. On January 9th, the complaint says the informant agreed to forge Saeed Akhmetov's signature on a new travel document because apparently his mom was fearful that he was thinking about joining ISIS, so she had confiscated his original one. But our FBI informant came to the rescue. A few weeks later, on January 29th, the informant called Saeed Akhmetov and told him that his travel documents had arrived, but that he'd have to go to the immigration office on Varick Street in Manhattan to have his fingerprints and photo taken than he did a few days later. So he didn't have the ability to get to Syria and fight with ISIS, but our FBI gave him that ability. What is the point helping him out with travel documents? Why are we assisting him with getting travel documents that he needs to fly to Syria? Maybe so that way we can pronounce that threat online, on TV, on the airwaves, and use it as propaganda to make you think there's a real threat out there. Folks that have no means, no ability to get to Syria to fight, but our FBI is going to help and assist in that, just like they done with other folks in the country that wanted to carry out terrorist acts. Now, we have this other article out here, ISIS by the numbers, foreign fighter total keeps growing. Let's see here, NBC News. The number of Westerners who have traveled to Syria and Iraq to fight for ISIS continues to grow, according to U.S. officials, and has now reached 3,400. Now, we can't trust the U.S. officials. We can't trust NBC News. So more than likely, all the numbers I'm about to tell you are probably off, wrong, or straight out lies. Matter of fact, it's spoken by a liar. In testimony Thursday, General James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, again, a known liar, told Congress the intelligence community now estimates that 3,400 citizens from Western nations have traveled to Syria and Iraq. That's 700 more than November's estimate of 2,700. Though officials say some portion of the higher headcount represents improved intelligence, not new recruits. Now, I don't believe the numbers they report, not because I don't believe numbers. I don't trust the people that report the numbers. From November now, that's only November, a few months now, it has grown from 2,700 to 3,400 citizens from Western nations. This many people are getting turned on by ISIS. That's what they're trying to tell us. Clapper said that ISIS now has 20,000 foreign fighters, up from 16,000 last fall, out of a total fighting force of as many as 31,000. U.S. officials have said in the past that the number of fighters currently engaged in fighting for ISIS is around a dozen. Okay, a dozen. We don't break things down by gender, said the official, but the number of women is not insignificant. ISIS has been using social media to encourage young women to join the group. And get this, in many cases, they're enticed with the promise of marriage to ISIS fighters. Again, in many cases, they're enticed with the promise of marriage to ISIS fighters. So what they're telling you is women are being turned on by ISIS because they are promising to marry them. So the marriage to a terrorist is a turn on. A terrorist that would probably end up dying. Who knows how long you'll be married, if you're even married. And people are getting turned on by this. Now, if anybody is, which I'm pretty sure someone out there is it really in high numbers? Is this really a threat that we got to worry about a whole bunch of people getting turned on by getting a chance to marry ISIS fighters in Syria? Seriously, we have to really question some of the things they want us to believe, some of the things we're being told by our government, because we know that they're known for lying, but apparently the FBI visits this guy and he gives up all the information, everything he wants to do, harm Obama, do it for ISIS, doesn't have the means but wants to go to Syria. This is amazing. Just give them everything they want, basically, and then give up his friend. And now they want us to believe that apparently women are getting turned on because they get a chance to marry ISIS fighters that'll probably be dead soon anyways. Next thing you know, they're going to be telling us that they're going to turn people on by song or raps or music or movies.
A disturbing new report is out showing that ISIS is using the Disney movie Mulan to recruit women jihadists.
Okay, so now they're using Disney movies. Mulan. What's next? Frozen, Lion King, Aladdin. What are they going to use? Anything and everything that they can. This is utterly ridiculous. Now, If they're announcing it, it must be a major threat, right? I mean, how many people are actually out there expressing their thoughts on ISIS and Mulan?
The Institute for Strategic Dialogue is tracking dozens of ISIS women online. This tweet that says, "I wonder if I can pull a Mulan and enter the battlefield, raised on Disney, aspiring to jihad."
And how many people do we know raised on Disney that want to go and fight in the battlefield because of a cartoon that they watched? This is ridiculous. They tracking dozens, they said, just dozens, and they got one tweet. But we're going to exaggerate and blow it up like a whole bunch of people are out there really following ISIS through Mulan or through any other movie, song, anything else. This is the things that we need to question, because it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense that people would get turned on by that. What is it anyways that they're telling these girls?
They are given this romantic idea that they are traveling to this foreign territory by themselves. It's actually quite liberating for many of them, and that they will be paired with this romantic idea of a jihadist soldier. And when you look at the propaganda and you have these men with guns and windswept hair with the desert in the background, this is actually quite empowering.
Now you got to sit there and really think, how does she say that with a straight face? How could anyone really believe that? Windswept hair, guns, the desert in the background is a turn on, and you going to Syria by yourself as a female to marry a jihadist, a terrorist. That's somehow a turn on. This is what they're trying to sell us. This is what they're trying to get us to believe, that somehow that's a threat, because they are getting recruits or getting people through Disney movies. These stories just don't add up. They don't make sense. It seems like conveniently ISIS is being used for the government's agenda, doesn't it? I mean, after all, we know they don't want us to have internet freedom, the free flow of information. So what they got to do, they got to crack down on the internet through the FCC because of terrorist threats, terrorist propaganda.
The problem there is their ubiquitous use of the media. And so the challenge is, how do you take down the internet?
So why do we got to shut down the internet? Why don't we just shut down the TV and all the media stations that are hyping up ISIS and giving them credibility and giving them all this airwaves, all this attention, all this free advertising? It's almost like they're helping their cause, but yet the internet's the problem. The free flow of information is the problem. So we got to use ISIS to stop that, to attack that. Now, we can't even go shopping at the malls now.
What if such an attack were to occur in the Mall of America in Minnesota, or the West Edmonton Mall in Canada, or in London's Oxford Street? It prompted the Homeland Security Secretary to say this.
If anyone is planning to go to the Mall of America today, they've got to be particularly careful. Jeh
Johnson has since walked that back. Johnson and law enforcement officials now say there's no specific credible threat to the Mall of America.
So if there's no real threat, how come we're hyping it up? How come we're giving all this publicity to a threat that isn't real? That doesn't make any sense. So we're giving them more credibility. We're creating more of a state of fear that people got to be surrounded by when they go to the mall now. They got to be thinking about terrorism and terrorist acts. Again, no real credible threat, though. Okay, and I have this article here inside the Anti-Terror Task Force at the Mall of America. Basically, it seems like they got their own little government in the mall. It states here, the East African terror group Al-Shabaab has named Mall of America as a target. Security forces at Minnesota Mall, which is large enough to swallow 7 Yankee stadiums, say they are prepared for an attack. Unlike many other retail establishments which hire inexperienced rent-a-cops to enforce security, the Mall of America has its own anti-terrorism task force. And I was reading that they work right along with local law enforcement. You know, they're all probably cozy with each other. Let's see here. According to the 2008 congressional testimony of Doug Reynolds, Security Director for Mall of America, the mall has a risk assessment and mitigation unit modeled after similar units in Israel. Members of the group are trained in Israel at the expense of 555 Group, the conglomerate that owns the mall. These, quote, these officers look for intent rather than means, Reynolds told House lawmakers in 2008. So basically it's like a form of what? Stop and frisk? So now they're just picking people by random and questioning them? It says here the unit has courted controversy. A 2011 investigation by NPR and the Center for Investigative Reporting found the counter-terror unit has questioned innocent people over seemingly innocuous behavior. This includes a 62-year-old Iranian man who passed out during questioning and an Army veteran who had recorded video inside the mall. The task force also assembled extensive dossiers on people that included personal information like social security numbers without their knowledge. These are the people that are protecting us when you go to the mall. ISIS isn't doing that. The security officers at Mall of America that are acting like government officials, acting like FBI and DHS, they're doing that. Okay, so we got to use the threat of ISIS to create a police state, even in the malls, and use that as an excuse to question people, stop people. They're probably frisking them too, holding them, interrogating them. It's ridiculous. Now, if we really want to keep people safe from terrorism, we would let them arm themselves. Law-abiding citizens, allowing them to arm themselves. Now, there is a Minnesota State Representative, Tony Cornish, is publicly asking the mall to allow legally armed visitors in response to the threat. And I think people should be able to arm themselves. We have a Second Amendment right. Now, at the mall, it's privately owned. So if that private company doesn't want people carrying arms, then that's their call. Maybe we shouldn't be going there. If we're going to be in a place where there's supposed threats and we can't even protect ourselves, and then the people that's protecting us are the ones that are stopping us, frisking us, questioning us, innocent people. Okay, so chances are they're not going to get rid of the gun-free zone signs at Mall of America, and so chances are if there is a terrorist attack, it may very well be the Mall of America, because terrorists and criminals will know that everyone there is unarmed. They will automatically know that. And then we got the media announcing it on TV. There's no real threat, but let's announce Mall of America is a huge target, an easy target. A lot of people were there. So anybody watching, anybody who wants to make a name for themselves, anybody getting turned on by ISIS, one of those chicks that's getting turned on, there they go. They can go to that mall because the media is just blasting it everywhere, feeding into the hysteria, feeding into the hype when there is no real threat. So we got ISIS being used, or terrorism, we should say, ISIS and this other group being used to help stop the internet, because that's a threat, right? They're turning people on. And then also being used at the malls to create this police state, right? We got to be vigilant, you know. And then now it's being used for DHS funding.
Unless Congress acts, the TSA, which keeps airports safe, the Coast Guard, which keeps America's water safe, and the Secret Service, which keeps the president safe, would lose funding.
So maybe the real reason why they're hyping up these threats and these people that are trying to go to Syria and trying to scare you is because they need to keep the fear out there in the public, so that way they can keep the DHS being funded. Our agencies like the DHS, they need you to think they're vital, they're important. You got to be protected. You need the government. So you need to call on Congress to pass this funding bill. You need to be all for it, because we need the DHS. So all the Republicans, all the Democrats agree. One thing they all agree on is we got to fund DHS. Now, some of them are against immigration, other ones aren't. But at the end of the day, they're all for funding the DHS. So they keep this fear campaign out there, so that way you will call for it. You will call for the police state, because after all, you just want to be safe. You just want to be protected. Doesn't matter if they got to go through your purse or your wallet or interrogate you for hours. Doesn't matter. You got to be safe. And now they want to scare you also, because if we don't fund DHS, it's going to affect your economy now.
1 week from now, more than 100,000 DHS employees, Border Patrol, port inspectors, TSA agents will show up to work without getting paid. Now, they all work in your states. These are folks who, if they don't have a paycheck, are not going to be able to spend that money in your states. It will have a direct impact on your economy.
See, this is just more fear. Now, this reminds me of the bailout. Remember how they try to scare everyone into believing that we had to bail out the bankers? We had to save them, because if we save them, then we save the economy, or else the economy will come crashing down. So we got to bail them out. It's just like this. We got to fund DHS. We have to have them. There's true terrorism. There's real threats. Look, there's U.S. members, U.S. citizens trying to go to Syria to fight. We need the DHS to protect the homeland. So we need you to go along with it, the American people, and call for it. And if they can't get you with fear, they're going to get you with guilt. They want you to feel guilty because these DH employees may not get paid. Some of them may even still have to come to work and not get paid.
If the department does shut down, it would mean some 30,000 furloughs. But the vast majority of workers, from TSA to Border Patrol to Secret Service agents, would still be required to work, in most cases without pay.
We have many DHS employees. They'll have to come to work if you're essential personnel, but they won't be paid. How would you like it if you lost a paycheck? They have to feed their families.
Let's not forget that the Department of Homeland Security interfaces with the American public more than any other department of our government, at airports, at ports.
He says interfaces. See, that's code word for terrorize. He's terrorizing us at the ports, at the airports. That's more of a reason for us not to pay the DHS employees, not to fund that agency, and to shut down that agency, just like we need to do with the Fed and the IRS and all the other agencies out there. But when they talk about them not getting paid, that's more of a reason to be against funding the DHS. That's good. We're going to cut something. That's what you're threatening us with? You're going to cut somewhere? But see, they don't want to cut security or cut national security or defense spending is what they call it. They don't want you to cut there, so they need to keep you scared. They need to keep that fear out there. So your number one priority is being safe and being protected. So your number one priority is to fund DHS, fund agencies like the CIA and all these other agencies that we have that are here to supposedly protect us. And so now they're using the ISIS threat for the DHS spending. And now there's a battle going on the Hill between the left and the right, or the Republicans and the Democrats, about who's to blame for a possible government shutdown.
Funding is going to stop if the Congress doesn't act. They've got to stop the partisan politics. You cannot connect this immigration issue to the funding of an agency which is responsible for protecting the homeland.
The burden is on the Republicans. What they're doing is wrong for the country, and they not only will be blamed, they should be blamed for what's going on.
This is what this party, the grand old party, the GOP, this is what they have brought. But they can get out of it in 5 minutes. Speaker Boehner can pass a funding bill. It'll pass in a heartbeat. Send it over here. We'll pass it. We'll turn to immigration and have it out on that subject. I think it's worthy of a debate. But you don't hold an important funding bill hostage to that debate. It is ridiculous, unnecessary, destructive, and cruel.
What we're going to do, Wolf, is something that's very simple. We're going to say, you know what, let's fund the security of our homeland. Make sure that all the money is there to make sure Al-Qaeda or Russia or China, no one can come and attack us here. What we're not going to fund, though, is something that has nothing to do with homeland security, which is the president's executive overreach. So when I hear Barbara Boxer make comments, or Democrats make comments that we're not passing a clean bill, or even you mentioned that, the fact is we actually are passing a clean bill that funds homeland security until the end of the fiscal year, which is the right thing to do. What I don't understand is why Democrats are saying we have to have the funding of the president's executive overreach in exchange for funding homeland security. That does not make sense. The president 22 times said he couldn't do this. The courts have agreed he can't do it, and in our funding package, we didn't give him the money for executive amnesty.
This is not about funding his executive order. This is about funding an essential function of government, and then Congress should legislate on these big questions of immigration policy.
Let's make sure we keep homeland security funded. We can have this debate about immigration a little further down the road when we have more time, but don't hold homeland security hostage because you want to fund executive amnesty.
So basically, we got another government shutdown showdown, I guess, going down, and the Republicans are blaming the Democrats, and Democrats blaming Republicans, the House versus Senate, Senate versus the House versus Obama. So everybody's blaming everyone. So who's really responsible? What's really going on? And should it be funded? Now, first off, I don't even think the DHS should be funded, period, at all. It's unconstitutional. There's no reason for it. We just need our Second Amendment rights. But the media would have you believe that it's the House and all the Republicans that are causing this shutdown, just like they did last time. just like they did last time with this government shutdown. Now, really, though, in reality, Obama and the Senate Democrats are really responsible. Again, we shouldn't be funding it, but they both are claiming they want to fund DHS. But in reality, it's Obama and the Senate Democrats that are playing these political games. Now, the House was meant to have the power of the purse. The Senate can only amend it, and the president can veto it. So if the House and the Senate can get a 2/3 majority vote, then they can override the president's veto. The Constitution states that revenue bills can only be created in the House. Okay? It's called the Origination Clause, Article 1, Section 7 in the Constitution, quote, all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. So basically, it's supposed to originate any revenue bills, funding bills. They're supposed to originate in the House of Representatives. So it's meant for them to create it, not the Senate and not Obama, not the president. Okay? Now, let's see here. The House members are closest to the people more than the senators, so they were meant to control revenue spending. This from Wikipedia. The Origination Clause stemmed from an English parliamentary practice that all money bills must have their first reading and any other initial readings in the House of Commons before being sent to the House of Lords. This practice was intended to ensure that the power of the purse is possessed by the legislative body, most responsive to the people, although the English practice was modified in America by allowing the Senate to amend these bills. So the practice prior to us, the Senate didn't even get any say-so. It was just the House of Commons, in this case, the House of Representatives. But in our way of government, the Senate can amend it, but they can't create it. They can't call the shots, which is what they're trying to do now. Now, James Madison knew that the power of the House was broken up amongst many more members than the Senate's. He also knew that they had shorter term limits. And with this knowledge, I believe, that he felt they would better respond to the will of the people. I mean, you got shorter term limits and you're broken up amongst more members, so your powers is less than that of your Senate peers. So let's see here. James Madison also put it this way, speaking to the first Congress, quote, the Constitution, as had already been observed, places the power in the House of originating money bills. The principal reason why the Constitution had made this distinction was because they were chosen by the people and supposed to be best acquainted with their interests and ability. In order to make them more particularly acquainted with these objects, the Democratic branch of the legislature consisted of a greater number and were chosen for a shorter period so that they might revert more frequently to the mass of the people. They are going to be more willing to respond to the will of the people. So if the will of the people is to not fund the Obama's unconstitutional executive action, then the will of the people are going to make that happen through the House because they control the purse and they won't allow the funding for it, which is constitutional. But listening to the media, you would think it's the House and all the Republicans' fault. Now let's see here. I got this article here from the National Review. Let's see. The term persistently used throughout the framers' debates was money bills. The phrase used by Elbridge Gerry, perhaps the principal advocate of the Origination Clause, when he moved to restrain the senatorial branch from originating money bills. The other branch, the House, was more immediately the representatives of the people. And it was a maxim that the people ought to hold the purse strings. Who would disagree with that? If you really sat down and thought about it, you would think that the House, yes, compared to the Senate, should have control of the purse, of the funding, of the spending. It's more closer to the people. We should control how our money is being spent as close as possible. Now let's keep going in the article. When the Origination Clause was specifically taken up, a spirited debate ensued, with some delegates protesting against restrictions on the Senate. According to Madison's records, however, what generally prevailed was the argument of George Mason. Quote, the consideration which weighed with the committee was that the first branch, the House of Representatives, would be the immediate representatives of the people. In the second, the Senate would not. Should the latter have the power of giving away the people's money, they might soon forget the source from whence they received it. We might soon have an aristocracy. Okay, they were talking about, they were already way back then weary of the Senate because they weren't close to the people. So what do you think they're going to spend the money on if they can control the purse? On their agenda, on what they want. Mason's concerns seem present in our era of mammoth national government presided over by an entrenched ruling class of professional politicians. He worried that the Senate is not like the House of Representatives, chosen frequently and obliged to return frequently among the people. They are chosen by the states for 6 years, will probably settle themselves at the seat of government. Again, he's talking about the Senate, will pursue schemes for their aggrandizement. If the Senate can originate, they will, in the recess of the legislative sessions, hatch their mischievous projects for their own purposes and have their money bills ready cut and dried for the meeting of the House of Representatives. The purse strings should be in the hands of the representatives of the people. And that's what's happening now, is it not? The Senate, the Obama, the Democrats, and even some Republicans, they're trying to push for this executive action. Push for their schemes. Again, what did it say? They are chosen by the states for 6 years, will probably settle themselves at the seat of government, will pursue schemes for their aggrandizement. If the Senate can originate, they will, in the recess of the legislative sessions, hatch their mischievous projects for their own purposes and have their money bills ready, cut, and dried for the meeting of the House of Representatives. Let's keep going. Let's see. Yes, the purse strings, not just the power to tax. The origination clause speaks of bills for raising revenue. In selling the Constitution to the nation, though it was portrayed as securing in the hands of the people's representatives the power of the purse, it is an empty power if spending is not included. Let's see here. And they quote a relevant paragraph in Madison's Federalist, number 58, is worth quoting in full. Quote, a constitutional and infallible resource still remains with the larger states, by which they will be able at all times to accomplish their just purposes. The House of Representatives cannot only refuse, but they alone can propose the supplies requisite for the support of government. They, in a word, hold the purse, that powerful instrument by which we behold, in the history of the British Constitution, an infant and humble representation of the people, gradually enlarging the sphere of its activity and importance, and finally reducing, as far as it seems to have wished, all overgrown prerogatives of the other branches of the government. This power over the purse may in fact be regarded as the most complete and effectual weapon with which any constitution can arm the immediate representatives of the people. So if we can have the power of the purse, then we can have an effective weapon to restrain governments. Basically what they're saying, this power over the purse may in fact be regarded as the most complete and effectual weapon with which any constitution can arm the immediate representatives of the people for obtaining a redress of every grievance and for carrying into effect every just and salutary measure. So we need to have control of the purse. The Senate, the Democrats in the Senate, and even some of the Republicans and Obama shouldn't have any control over the purse. But they want to. That's why they try to manipulate us through the media.
I want to talk about overreach. Overreach is using a threat of the shutdown of an important set of government responsibilities in order to exact concessions from the president or from Democrats in Congress. That, to me, is not acceptable.
Can you believe this? He is actually stating what he's actually doing. It's actually happening the way he stated, but in reverse. That's exactly what the Democrats and those on the other side who want the executive action are doing. They are tying it in, and they are using the threat of the government shutdown to try to get what they want. But it's amazing. They'll sit there with a straight face and tell you it's the other way around, and the media will go right along with it.
We have to understand that the House, per our Constitution, has the power of the purse. And so we have no obligation to fund executive amnesty that comes from the president or any of the president's wishes that they come out of the White House. We have the power of the purse, and those duly elected members of Congress should hash that out. Now, we would have both agree we need to get immigration reform done, but we are not going to fund the president's executive amnesty, but we are going to fund Homeland Security, and I think that's a very important distinction.
And there you have it. You don't have to fund executive action in order to fund the DHS. And somehow the Democrats want you to think that's one without really telling you that or saying it out loud. They want you to believe it's the Republicans. And again, if you want to fault the Republicans in the House, fault them for funding the DHS at all, for even wanting to fund an unconstitutional agency that we really don't need. But now the media and some Republicans would tell other Republicans in the House now to not worry about voting for the funding bill because there's a Texas judge that has Obama's executive authority on hold. So we can go that route.
What the president wants to do with these 4 or 5 billion illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants, right now, that's not happening because a Texas federal judge says it has to be put on hold. They're going to seek some reviews. They're going to the 5th District Circuit Court in New Orleans. But for all practical purposes, the president isn't able, at least for the time being, to do what you want to do. Isn't it more important, though, to keep the Department of Homeland Security going rather than taking a principled position, if you will?
That's right. We always got to sacrifice our principal position for the country or for the party. But you know what? There's some politicians out there that aren't so principled that are willing to make that vote. Let's say Senator Graham and John McCain.
There's a court ruling, and some Republicans think that's the way to do this, to say, look, let's give the president his money and let's just fight this in the courts. Listen to John McCain and Lindsey Graham. They're essentially begging their party not to shut down the department.
I don't believe we will. We now have an exit sign, and that is the federal court decision saying that the president's actions unilaterally are unconstitutional.
Our best bet is to challenge this in court, that if we don't fund the Department of Homeland Security, we'll get blamed as a party. And the worst thing to do is add gasoline to the fire by having the Republican Party defund the Department of Homeland Security.
So you see, you even got certain Republicans going along with the narrative that the media is giving you and that the Senate Democrats are telling you and that the White House is telling you, is that Republicans want to shut down the government. Look, John McCain and Graham, they're worried that Republicans are going to be to blame and Republicans shouldn't defund the DHS, instead of telling you the truth that the House Republicans control the purse. And in reality, it's the Senate and Obama who is are trying to shut down the government, are threatening to shut down the government so they can get their executive action through. And then we can discuss immigration. Then we can debate it. Then we can bring it up. But first we need to pass it. That's their threat. And you know what? That's what the Founding Fathers were worried about, and that's what's happening right now. And lastly, I want to touch on our major story of the night as well, Bill O'Reilly, the fall of Bill O'Reilly. If you recall a couple of weeks ago when the Brian Williams situation was going on, Bill O'Reilly was actually defending him, and so were some others in the media. And I was telling people the reason is because they know their line every day, and they could be next. And apparently it's looking like Bill O'Reilly just might be next. So there's apparently a lie that he's caught in stating that he was there as it happened, of someone committing suicide, someone that was involved in the JFK assassination, and he stated that he was there. But now it comes out a recorded conversation of him talking to someone else about that story. Basically, he was tipped off by someone else, and he didn't go to Florida where it happened until the next day.
Hi, Gaten, Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Look, something definitely did happen.
Yeah, I got it.
What is it?
He committed suicide up here in where I was trying to locate him.
Okay, where is that?
It's a place called Manalapan, Manalapan, Palm Beach County.
Okay, and that's a town, Manalapan?
Yeah, it's a section of Lantana.
Yeah.
With the National Enquirers.
Okay. So he committed suicide. He's dead.
Yeah.
Okay. What time?
Late this afternoon. I don't know.
Okay. Gun?
I think he said he shot himself.
Okay. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Isn't that something? Jesus.
Now, we got to get this guy Epstein. I'm coming down there tomorrow. I'm coming to Florida. We got to get this guy. He knows what happened.
Well, I'm going to be up there probably trying to secure the papers.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to get in there tomorrow. I'm going to get a car.
So as you see, you can hear Bill O'Reilly talking to another gentleman that was there, and he's not. So he's stating he's going to be going the next day. But here in this next clip, you will hear him say that he was there right after it happened, or pulled up to the house right as the guy committed suicide.
There's a guy named George DeMorenshield who is a shadowy guy who had CIA connections, and he's swirling around Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald's a loser, lowest rung, okay? No way this guy should be swirling around him. Now, I reported on this guy when I was working at WFAA TV in Dallas, this DeMorenshield, because he taught at Bishop College in Dallas. I can't put that together. Now, I chased DeMorenshield to Florida, and I was about to knock on the door where he was, his daughter's house, and he blew his brains out with a shotgun.
Really?
Oh, my goodness.
So as you can see, Bill O'Reilly is caught lying. He said he was there and he wasn't, and the phone conversation pretty much proves that. So we'll see in the coming weeks, what else is going to come out about Bill O'Reilly, and hopefully some other hosts out there will get caught up in their lies, and we could take more and more of them down. And the more that go down, the more people are going to wake up and realize that the media is public enemy number one, like what we believe here at Occupy the Media. They are the main reason that we are where we're at right now in this country, and why people are brainwashed, and we can't get the numbers and the masses that we need to wake people up. So look, I wanted to get into some of the headlines for this week, but looks like I ran out of time. So I think we're going to go ahead and leave it at that. Make sure you check me out, Paco Elijah, on Facebook. And then again, at the website, lacrlc.org. Again, that's lacrlc.org. Make sure I'm giving that to you right. Yeah, lacrlc.org. That's right. So make sure you check us out. If you feel led to, go ahead and donate, and also think about joining us if you're out here in the LA area in the Republican Party, because we definitely need to get involved and make a change. So anyways, I'll be back on Sunday 7 p.m. Pacific next week. So anyways, peace.